board to order, and we'll start with roll call.
Miller.
Here.
Rushmeyer. Schaefer. Here. Yeager.
Yes.
Scheib.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next we have the agenda. I would make a motion to move item 8G to the top of section 8, so we can try to get Paul out of here a little bit earlier. Anyone interested in seconding it?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Great. We'll move item 8G to, I don't know, item 8A, and everything else gets bumped down a letter.
Perfect.
Great. With that, we should approve the rest of the agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda's approved. Next, we have the consent calendar. Notice to the public. All matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That's approved. First presentation by Community Ed. Hello.
I'm Anne-Marie Locker, and I'm the Community Ed Director. And I had a new financial summary that I think he just handed you to add to a couple of pages that I provided earlier. How are you? Good. How are you? Good. So Community Ed runs spring tennis, summer baseball, softball, and t-ball, as well as the Miracle League for Brainerd Park District and Baxter Park District. So we combined programs, as you know, a couple of years ago. I just started a couple of years ago, so it had kind of combined right before I started. We had a good year. Lots of kids participating. Numbers for the most part up, as you can see from the participation piece that I gave you. The one area we kind of struggling with are the oldest level of baseball players. A lot of them are playing travel league and not doing Parks and Rec league anymore at that age. So we struggled to make some teams this summer. And then we also did a little breakdown by city, so you guys can just kind of see that there are a lot of Brainerd kids participating really in all of the Parks and Rec program. We also run soccer and flag football for Baxter, and obviously welcome kids from all over the area to participate in anything that Community Ed handles. So we are looking at next summer kind of changing some things up a little bit. We have had retirement of our longtime Parks and Rec coordinator and also our head baseball coach, Joe Polkamp. So we kind of did a little bit of reorg in our department and put those responsibilities under a full-time coordinator who's also doing several other things for our department, but they'll be overseeing the entire Parks and Rec's program, but we will need someone to take over baseball, which will be a big challenge. We did meet with the head high school varsity coach who was just hired to talk through our program and how it can really, work through to all ages. And I think he's going to be a big supporter and help us try to find someone to keep that program strong and running. And as you can see from the budget, we did end up in the negative the past couple of years. Looking at expenses, softball and baseball are definitely our most expensive. This budget overall is for our entire Parks and Rec, so it includes the soccer and flag football. those programs both do fine. It's softball and baseball that gets so expensive to run. We hire officials. There's a lot of equipment, a lot of running around town to different fields for people. We also have had, I don't know. It's just a lot of equipment increases, replacement over the years. I'm hoping this year we won't have quite as much of an expense with equipment. So we're looking at a few ways to reduce some of our costs. We will have a joint powers meeting with the city of Baxter in mid-November before we make any final decisions on some of those things we're talking through. But we also feel like we need to increase what we're paying, like some of the officials. We're behind what a lot of the traveling leagues are paying, and so in order to kind of compete for those mostly kids that are doing the officiating, we feel like we need to do a little bit of an increase. So we're going to look in detail at our budget over the next month or so before our November park board meeting. So I don't have an ask for next year, but I want to look a little bit at increasing what we're asking for contributions from both cities by a little bit, and then also increasing our participation fees a little bit. We haven't increased participation fees for a long time. I don't want to have to do that too much because I still want to make it an affordable program for families, but right now it's like $50 to $60 to play summer baseball all summer long. So, and even just like the t-shirt alone is costing us $10 now. So anyway, any questions for me or anything I can answer? We're going to really miss Joe Polkamp. Last time I was at a field with him, a kid came up and said, "Are you the guy?" And he's like, "Are you the baseball guy?" He said, "Yeah." So we'll miss him. It'll be big shoes to fill, but.
Any questions? Troy, yeah.
Yeah.
What are your fees? What are you paying your umpires?
Let's see, I have that somewhere. We're looking at maybe doing a 25% increase. I think it varies depending on what level they're doing,
I only ask because I know
what the travel's paying. It's less than that. We've been working with the scheduler to try to get it a little more even. So I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers exactly for which all the different levels, but it was like 30 to 50 a game, depending on what level they were at. So what is travel pay?
45 and 55.
40 and 55, okay.
That was 2 years ago. I don't know if they upped it last
Yeah, yeah,
year. Again, another 55 for the upper,
right,
45 for 9.
right. Yeah, so we've been working to kind of try to get those a little closer. I think traveling's a little bit more competitive and so probably a little bit more stressful to do, but still, it's your time, as a kid, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, so when we come back and start talking about an ask, for me, it would be super helpful to see that breakdown of sport by sport. What is contributing
Yep.
to the, do you have it?
Well, I have that, but not in a very shareable format, but I
Okay,
can put it
but
together
It
and
would be
kind
helpful
of
because
yep,
obviously then maybe we would look at adjusting, fees for one group versus the other.
Right.
So it would, I think it would be good information
Yep.
to have as we move forward with a game plan and
Okay.
and understanding. And then also just a basic idea of whether or not growth helps the figures or it makes it worse, if that makes sense. So.
as we add more kids, is it?
Absolutely. Is there
Yeah.
a measurement or a metric
Okay.
of how that affects the math?
Yep.
I guess other than that, just having more information would help make a better decision, but.
Okay, sounds good. I will get some of that and get it sent out to you guys, so. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
I have sorry, I have one question.
yeah.
I'm curious about the sponsorships. So I know it
Yes.
says on here just you're going to ask the amount paid for sponsorships, so maybe that would be something you could bring to.
Right, to try to increase, you mean?
Yep. Because I see there's like no donations, and maybe donations are the same as sponsorships, or I'm not sure. Is this your report? This is ours.
That's ours.
Oh, this is ours. Okay, never mind. That's
We
not your
had
report,
about, that's under the miscellaneous revenue, and that's on
This
this
is theirs? Oh,
report
right.
that he
Okay,
just
that is
handed
yours.
out.
Okay.
Yep, so we
just got
had
it.
just under 12,000 last year, and I think that's pretty
So
typical.
miscellaneous is sponsorship on here?
Yep.
Okay, and you're looking to increase that too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we, what they get right now is like they get the banners that they get hung up on the fields, so with their sponsorship, but I think we look at ways to try to boost that a little bit too.
Yeah.
So,
I have one more question.
yeah.
Is the Baseball Association still paying?
They did the last year for their, yes, for the kids that did not participate, but we haven't talked to them yet this year to see what their plans are for the future, so.
Dave?
Yeah, so just a couple thoughts. One, you hadn't mentioned, but you are now listing that you're hoping to increase the sponsorships. That would be my first recommendation, is go after higher sponsorship. From my own experience, sponsorship for youth activities, especially sports, is a no-brainer for most companies. So there's definitely dollars out there for that. Secondary, just something that comes up from the city of Brainerd on a consistent basis, whether we're talking this or we're talking anything else, is whenever we see a percentage that says Brainerd, we want to make sure that that Brainerd percentage is city of Brainerd, not Brainerd proper. So
Okay.
if it's a 56401 address, that's not the city of Brainerd, which we are not responsible for as a city in terms of taxpayers. So it happens on everything we talk about, whether we're talking Bladek or we're talking any other
Yep.
organization. We often will see a percentage. We
But
just
they
want to
may
make
be
sure
rural.
that that is, there's a lot of
Basically,
rural.
yeah.
So Gull Lake is not
Yeah.
the city of Brainerd. We just want to make sure.
Right.
So when we see a percentage that's high, could be, but my red flag always goes up because
Yeah.
we've seen that on a regular basis. It's
Well, and
difficult to do.
Right.
But that's something we are interested in from a city, of making sure that when we see that percentage, it is us. It
Is there
not-
an easy way to look at, I wonder, because, we
more
have
difficult.
street addresses.
Street
but-
addresses is the way, and then you
Yeah.
kind of have to go in by data,
just kinda
which
look.
makes it more difficult. But
Right.
we've just seen this happen enough times that
Yeah.
immediately, as soon as we see that, a red flag goes up, because Brainerd 56401 is Noki Lake. Brainerd 56401 is Gull Lake.
Right.
Those are not taxpayers to the city of Brainerd, which is what we're responsible for.
Right.
So those would be my two things. And then just making sure that when we're looking at the numbers here, I see that there's an increase, but it doesn't seem to be necessarily in baseball. It looks like there's more of an increase in some of the other activities. There's a little bit in baseball, but your T-ball numbers went up. But we're not-
Softball is
Yep.
up, yep.
Softball's a little bit, yep, but it looks like most of it is, I would just like to make sure that, as Kevin said, we're separating things out, so we're seeing what dollars the donuts are.
Yeah, if 32 grand in materials is going almost to all baseball and softball, that tells us maybe we work on those types of sponsorships, or that's why I was asking for the
Yep,
information.
yep. Sounds good. Great, thank you.
Thanks. All right, next we have the YMCA.
I brought an extra proposal. I submitted a report from last year, but I'll send this as well. So if I can get this to you now so you can look at it, we'll go through it together.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Shane Riffle, Y Guy, Brainerd Family YMCA, and just really honored and thankful to be able to present. Again, this is our third year doing this. I'd like to also introduce some other members on our team. We have Jess Erickson, our Associate Executive Director, and Reese Parks. He's kind of a new guy, but he's our Sports Director, making all of the magic happen out on the field. So just wanted to first and foremost thank you guys. This has been an incredible partnership. It allows us to broaden our mission with the Y. We're for youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And I'm out there often enough where I'm able to see the magic in the kids. And I've included some comments on the report where you can see what the parents are saying, but also the impact. We have some national data on how it not only teaches kids sports-specific skills, but that it provides a background and foundationally drives those qualities that make them better human beings and better Brainerd citizens. JC's Field, we'd like to thank Jesse and his team. Over the 3 years that we've been there, it's incrementally gotten better. I know that you're investing in it and also have plans for the future, so we hope to be a part of that ongoing. In this upcoming year, in the proposal that you'll see, and as I mentioned, I'll send to you, we like to expand programming. Jess would like to start an intro to fast pitch softball. She's a softball. She played in college as well, so she's particularly interested in that. But we'd like to add a fall component for softball. And then also at the new Lyman P. White Park, we're interested. Past 2 years, we've done some paddleboard races there and thinking about doing some weekly races where maybe get folks out there, have some music and just kind of formal, informal races to get people out on the Mississippi River there from town. So just an overview of what we'd like to do last year. You can see on the first page that our participation has grown over the years. From 2021, we had about 342, and then last year we had about 475. I referenced the experience survey, but you can see quality of staff, enjoyable program, role models, the values. That's particularly interesting. So 100% of the parents said that the program helps them better demonstrate the values of honesty, caring, respect, and responsibility, which are the Y values. And then participation, there is a pie chart there, and you just referenced the zip code. And while this is the 56401 zip code, I have done a plot map in the past, and you can really see that the concentration of users are right there in the downtown Brainerd area. We do have folks from Gull Lake and Baxter as well, but this is really those downtown households that are participating in the program. Had a little bit of budget information in there, a few comments. And then what we're proposing this year is a $5,000 fee increase. $2,500 of that is for just really the market-driven minimum wage increases. What used to be you could pay a coach for maybe $10, $11 an hour now is really $15 an hour or more for just coaches to help out. And then also if we're starting a new program, there will be some costs that are associated with that. So with that said, we're hope to continue the partnership for the upcoming season and then in the years to come. And I would open it up for any questions that you have of me or Jess or Reese.
Kevin.
What was the number of respondents on your experience survey, just out of curiosity?
This year, it was about 35 or so participants. So statistically, not, I guess, what you consider valid, but a statistician.
What was the national average of respondents?
Oh, the national average, gosh,
Never mind. I was just
Yeah.
curious. Thanks, Shane.
It's substantial, though. It's national, and there were a lot of Ys that participated in gathering that type of data. Thousands and thousands and thousands. I'll email that to Jesse.
Jesse would be perfect.
And if you have any questions, if you don't have now, I apologize for not getting it to you sooner. But if you have any questions, just email me or. Actually, my new office temporarily is in the nonprofit sector of the Bremer building downstairs next to the mayor, so you can swing by and.
That happened in place.
I hear they have wild parties.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have item 7A, discuss Parks Capital budget request. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is essentially the same item that was introduced at the last meeting. I'll just highlight a couple changes from the last agenda item. So I know there was a question about the concrete ring around for the JC's rink. I put a number in here. However, after talking with Todd Close at Becker Ice, he's thinking a little bit thicker than I was expecting for the thickness of the concrete ring. So that number's probably closer to maybe like 25 or 30,000. And then he hasn't gotten me any kind of solid number, but in evaluating the boards that we do have, the ones that we bought, he feels like generally they're in pretty good shape structurally. Cap rail needs to be replaced. The dasher boards need to probably be replaced. He's thinking somewhere in the realm of, I would say, about 30,000 to rehab those boards, and that we would ship them down to there. They would do the rehab and then bring them back and install them, and then whatever the cost for the installation would be. So I just wanted to give a quick update on that item because I know we had some discussions about what those dollars would look like.
Cool. Thanks, Jesse.
I have one question.
Oh, yeah.
Jesse, did you determine what the cost would be to repair the boards of that ring?
For the JC's one, he's thinking about 30-ish. Yes, correct. To repair. So all of the cap rail is pretty much damaged, so all the cap rail would have to be replaced, and most of the dasher boards are in pretty rough shape, so those would mostly be replaced. There's a couple of boards that would probably have to be completely replaced. They're bent and some welds would need to be repaired, but generally it's actually a pretty good system from his evaluation. So he felt roughly about 30. He's still supposed to be getting me a better number, but he has not as of this time. But ballpark, it's around 200 for a new system, very similar. Yep. Similar one.
I'm curious, does anyone know, did anyone look at that before it was delivered, or do you know?
I believe the conversation that I've had with Troy is that he essentially saw it as it was coming off the truck, and the guy kind of made a quick dash for the city limits after that. Is how he's expressed it to me.
So in reality, we're looking at 30 plus 25 for the concrete ring, at least 55 grand to put the ring up.
I would put it close to 60, yeah, somewhere in that realm.
Yeah. Any other questions, Troy? All right, so we kind of had two goals for our budget discussion today. First one was kind of what to do with the remaining 111,000 from the presentation. So we've got some names from Jesse. I know another idea we discussed last time was instead of 2%, we do 2 point something percent. So that I think would be a good first thing to tackle. I know with the Y and community ed, those asks may go up. So I think we'd want to reserve probably a little bit until November to see what that comes back as. But I think kind of the general philosophy would be good to pin down today, and then once we know those numbers, we can dial in an amount. Or if we want to pick out other things like Jesse was saying, the boards or the other things on this list, we can do that today too. But so from our discussion last month and then thinking about it, where's everyone kind of landing on what we want to do with this?
I'll start.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking this over, basically, my initial leaning would be to set this aside for future projects, but based upon some of the comments from our liaison, that we would like to have the money set aside for known projects. I personally would like to have us take a look at the list that we created, look at our projects that really fit into that 2024, 2025 range. Some of them were close, some of them were not, and then work from there. And just maybe as a question to our liaison, not to spring it on you, Dave, but is there if we set aside that money for a project, does it have to be next year? Or can it be set for a known project that's maybe 2025 or 2026?
Yeah, I think that is within the realm of acceptability. I think what the council would like to see is identified projects, right? So specific things you're looking to fix, but there's only so much we can do in a year. So, you know, we can't just say we're going to do all of this and then have no ability to do it. So I think that's within the realm of acceptability. I think that also kind of fits into your philosophy as well. It is at least similar, right? But yeah, I think if you presented something and said, you know, this is listed for 2025, we're probably not going to get to it to 2025, but we'd like to budget it now so that we can start the process. I think that's the other part of this as well, is once it's been budgeted, you can actually start doing things like sending it out and getting estimates and doing that sort of stuff, which opens up a lot more possibilities. So I would think that that definitely fits within it. We may get a little bit of pushback on that, but I don't think so. I think as long as you're not saying this is for 2030, I think at some point there's a realm where you cross past that, so.
Right. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that too. I mean, if we have projects that are outside of our 2% realm, we are going to have to budget multiple years worth of dedicated funds for those type of things too, or come to them and ask for more. But if we're going to do this strategy, we're going to need to go out a couple of years and say, look, we're going to budget for it this year, and this year, and it's going to be done in 2027 or whatever, using this 2% philosophy. So I think,
Yeah, so great example being, you know, I'm looking on here, I saw one for 600,000, which I believe was Mills Stadium concession stand, which I don't know if that includes bathrooms or not, but $600,000, right? And that's 2028. You know, if you were to say we're budgeting 200,000 for 3 years, you know, obviously that's a little bit further out than that, but I think that still fits within that exact philosophy, so. Yes! Well, it wasn't working to begin with, so the clock has fallen.
Oh. It's far more startling to you guys, I bet, than us, because I saw it going down.
We still don't know what the giant boom was outside.
So with that being said, now, you know, kind of with that feedback, sorry, Jonathan, are you, that being said, my leaning would be is we go back to our other list, the forward list, and then kind of work backwards from there. Maybe pick out one of our larger ticket items. It sounded like some of the ARPA funds could be potentially, we had some money in there for the ARPA also, which could be added to that as well. So I appreciate the list that was added. It just doesn't seem to fit our whole, you know, our whole mindset moving forward. And great point, Dave. Absolutely, something we haven't even thought about. Yet another wrinkle to this whole forward-thinking budgeting is: can you actually execute the work? Do we self-perform it? Do we not self-perform it? Do we hire? You know, that whole process. So the budget has to also accommodate the mindset of getting it bid, getting it done, getting it checked, and that too. So complicated, but I think we could figure it out. John. Oh. Troy?
Kevin, are you proposing we have a special meeting again?
Well, I mean,
I think really,
I-
you know, where we just write stuff down. on
it feels like a whiteboard session to me, to be honest. We get together, we look at our list. It's very similar to how we got to here to begin with, for just creating the list. It seems that way to me, but
I think we're all kind of on the same wavelength as far as, let's not add anything right now. Let's make sure we can take care of what we have and go from there, but still looking forward. And I think a whiteboard session would be prudent to move forward as you're discussing, as you're explaining this.
I mean, I agree. Yeah, so I 100% agree. If that's the direction we want to take, again, because it's budgeting for the future, and then we need to come up with what actually, like, and when we're looking at specific projects, you know, we need to be able to have a conversation about what the wooden garage with the old shingles really needs to have done, and what that's actually going to cost, et cetera, et cetera. That fits the budget a little bit tighter, makes it look a lot cleaner, and something better for us to present instead of, hey, we're going to go fix the shed.
right.
So I agree. Real
could take 3,000 off in this right now. I could pick up that Gustafson Park shed for $1 and, we'd be making money.
That's what the whiteboard session's for. Boom, right there.
It sounds like looking to have a special meeting. Can we pick a date that works now, just so we?
Bring my calendar to park board meetings.
I would say 2 weeks, but Tuesdays are hard for me right now, unless it were to start. Well, I guess if it started at the
election
same
day.
time, 4 o'clock.
Is there an election?
Oh, I don't know, it just says election day.
Oh, fair. Yeah, I feel like the week of the 6th is probably on a good schedule for us. Jesse, are there days that week that do or don't work for you?
Most of the afternoons outside of the council meeting is on Monday.
Sure. Probably no Monday then.
7th.
Is that okay on a Tuesday, Troy? I think an hour is probably
I
reasonable.
think so
Yes.
too.
4 o'clock?
Yeah, that works. All right, November 7th, 4 p.m. budget special meeting.
Just real quickly, if we could, what would be helpful for that meeting, don't have to spend a lot of time on this, Mr. Dean, but if you could just rip down the list and see if there's anything in there that we think we would self-perform and roughly about how long we think it would take on those items that are self-performed, that'd be super helpful to know if we can reshingle, if we can do anything.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, it sounds like everybody's kind of in the same boat of moving the 111 back into the long-term maintenance fund, so making that total the 510. And really what the special meeting would be for is kind of identifying of the 510, what are we really starting to target for the next few years? Is that correct?
That's correct to me, but I just want to be hesitant to pass along that we're just going to push this back into that large fund. We're going to find a home for this money, set dates for it, and then execute it. I think is what we're talking about here.
Correct. Yep.
It just may not be 2024.
Yep.
I guess the other thing we need to resolve is if we just need a higher percentage, are we doing that every year? Would this, 110,000 be just the one time we're increasing it by a point, whatever? Or if this is something sustainably over the next 30 years that we're doing more than 2%. So I think that we have to identify that as well. So.
Excellent. And then kind of our second item was some of the smaller things. So like picnic tables, grills, garbage cans, weed and feed. Weed and feed's a bad example. Benches, signs. Do we want those kind of how they are in this document where it's just X rate for a given year for picnic tables and benches? Or do we want to itemize those and say, hey, Gregory's got 11 benches, we're going to depreciate those? Kind of my feeling is I think this is a lot more clear. I think it's going to clutter up our capital spreadsheet to say, especially as we get to the maintenance report here at the end with those destroyed tables. I think it's more clear to just have a fund for these items instead of saying, we've got 500 rows on our spreadsheet because 200 are benches and picnic tables. And that will make it harder for us to focus on the big stuff, which is what breaks our budget. Like, the council's not going to be mad if we're like, a bunch of hooligans broke our new tables. We need $5,000. That's a much easier conversation than, oops, Bill's Field is 600,000.
I agree. I think we should have some sort of baseline whenever we set, like, hey, every year we just need this for sure. Like, this is what we want to make the parks. If we do nothing else, this is what we need to do every year. So I think that's the minimum, and I think we should always have that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll absolutely agree with that. I think if we just had this as our running total, now I'm not saying that it might be potentially a good idea at the beginning of every year, we say, this is our numbers. This is kind of what staff is thinking we're going to do for this year. Go through it, each item, we'll just touch on it real quick, and then away you go. I think that's enough.
Excellent. So what I will do before our workshop is flag all of these types of items: picnic tables, grills, garbage cans, benches, and hide them in the spreadsheet, so we've got a easier list to work off of. Excellent. All right. I think we're good on the budget discussion then. Did we cover everything, Jesse?
I think so. Until we get to our special meeting, yep.
Perfect. Next up, 7B, self-service kayak rentals at Lum Park. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So same item as we kind of just tabled it to this meeting. I did want to clarify some pieces that was asked at the last meeting, specifically who owns the cage and the kayaks. So I did get clarification in the agreement that Rent.Fund would own the cage and the kayaks. That helps with their liability insurance as well, so that they're the ones that own and operate it. The $18,000 is essentially for I don't want to call it leasing or use fee. But I did want to clarify that, and then there is obviously insurance requirements that hold harmless the city for issues that might arise because of it. So that's something that they have kind of as part of their process. They have users sign a waiver in case there's issues, but they also carry the liability insurance too. With that, I'll leave it up for any other questions on this.
I think my only question was do you know if there's any sort of UI or anything like that that allows us to see like what's checked out on what days, like any of that? That's the only kind of conversation that came up for me. If there were like, like usage information and things like that, checkout times and things like that we have access to on our end, or that they just send us a bill, or like what our revenue, our cut is. At a specific interval.
There is reporting that we have access to. I don't know if it gets too far into the details of exactly when the rentals are, but I believe we get like a report of hours that it got rented on a weekly and a monthly basis, if I remember my conversations with the other agencies correctly.
Kind of my thought on this, I think this is a great thing to ask to use some of the ARPA funds for. It's getting people outside. It doesn't really seem to create long-term maintenance costs. I'm not going to say it pays for itself, but it seems like it's going to eventually even out. Like, I don't think it's going to be a revenue, profit center like a campground is, but I think it's a great option, and it's a new amenity that we don't have. So I think the council might be interested in using some of the funds for that, but 'cause I think it's really cool, and I appreciate Jesse's legwork to track down the other cities that are using this, and it seems legit. So that's my thought, is we'd ask the council to pay for this with some of the ARPA money.
Sounds like it goes on the whiteboard. Or do you want to do it today?
Is there a council meeting before? There would be the day before, right?
I think what you're going to hear from the council is spend the money on the things that they directed you to use the ARPA funds for first. So if you want to include this as part of the beach, then potentially, but I know that the first thing out of a couple of their mouths is going to be, we've already given you direction as to what we'd like you to spend that money on. So could potentially, but.
I was thinking new request.
Oh, potentially, but I can hear a few voices in my head that will probably say, direct it more towards the projects that we have in front of us, but potentially.
Yeah, Troy.
I think if we're going to do it, we have a plan, kind of a layout for that beach area. We have a layout for that beach area, and I'm assuming this would, if we were gonna do this, and Jesse, maybe you can answer this, doing it after the fact or during the construction of that beach area, I would assume it's gonna be more cost effective to do it at the same time if we choose to do this than add it later on. Or do we just peg an area and say, it's just concrete, right, that we're putting here?
We can do just like a gravel pad. There doesn't need to be anything special. my recommendation would be to wait till after the expansion. You're gonna have a lot of equipment going in and out of there. You probably don't want that cage in the way. So,
No, I was talking about the platform itself, to have a
oh,
platform for it.
right,
so-
that could be pretty easy. Even our maintenance staff could probably put that in.
Okay.
To be clear, they also say in the manual, whatever their pitch, that they don't need a pad or any electrical, so they just throw it in whenever we're done.
If we wait till it's done, when will that be again? Like, in the middle of
I'm hopeful we can get a lot of the work done this spring, but it'll depend on the contractor and their availability.
Do you know what sort of lead time they need, Jesse? Like if we say yes today, I mean, obviously we wouldn't put it in now, but
I'm sure it'd be several weeks, but if we're talking about approving it, even now we're in November, we're most likely easily within the time frame to have it installed in spring for next summer season.
cool. So it sounds like we want to roll this into our workshop in a couple of weeks. Generally, okay, yes. So Jesse, if you can include this item on kind of that. Cool. All right, item 7C, discussing parks ARPA projects. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple follow-up items. The first one is JC's, the trail. I know there was questions about paving width and the ability to do so. I did have a conversation with Anderson Brothers. They confirmed that their paving equipment is kind of limited to about 8.5 feet. They can go less than that, but their concern is a lot more handwork. The quality tends to go down and the price goes up quite a bit. So I included kind of some rough pricing in here for kind of a per foot of trail cost on kind of two different scenarios. So doing like a 6-foot concrete walk, if you wanted to go with a narrower walk, it's roughly about $40 a foot. If you do want to do the 8-foot bituminous paved multi-use trail type thing, you're looking at maybe about $15 per foot. The other thing that we could do, looking at the layout, to the concern about having vehicles on the trail, you could slide the boulders in between the parking lot and the trail, and that would also help keep vehicles from encroaching onto the trail that park there, keeping that further clear. So that is something that we could adjust the plans for. And then the other piece on the ARPA projects is on the Lum Park Beach project. We did notice that with our recent resurfacing project, we kind of stopped right where the turnoff is for the boat launch road, so it leaves the existing parking lot with the older, a little bit more of a rougher surface. Is it something that we want to redirect Woodseth to include a resurfacing of the remaining parking lot after they remove the 2/3? And is that something that the park board would like to see as part of that project? So just looking for some direction on those two items. Then I can give that to Woodseth.
Let's start with the trail at JC's. Kevin?
I'm good with to me personally, and I think we kind of talked about this last time, I'm good with the 8-foot trail if it's fine, but I just think a removable bollard in the middle would solve the whole issue with the vehicles going down there. I looked at some other parks, they have something very, very similar. That's my only thought, is just gonna try to keep the vehicles from driving in there. That's all.
Right.
Yeah, same. I have no problem. I mean, why would we spend more if we don't have to? And, you know, it's nice to have an 8-foot wide walkway, and we can block it with the bollard or rocks or whatever, but
Yeah, I do like the idea of moving the rocks to be between the parking lot and the trail. I think that would be just visually, I think it would be nicer too, even if we just have like mulch or gravel in there, but just that little bit of separation would be nice.
I think a bollard on the trail would be ideal, because then it's there, and we don't want to be moving rocks back and forth to have access to the trail. If we just planned for that, that would work quite well.
support that. No, 8 foot is good.
Do you need a motion, Jesse, or just
I think general direction is good. Thank you.
cool? So I'm hearing is bollard in the trail, 8-foot asphalt. Leave the rocks where they are.
Yep.
Cool. Excellent. Lum Park parking lot. Any questions for Jesse or thoughts on that? Kevin.
Forgive me, I haven't been down there and just looked at it recently, but the condition of the asphalt that we're talking about replacing, is it, what stage in its life roughly?
It's getting really late in its life. Quite a bit of cracking. It maybe has another 5 to 10 years, depending on the condition and the use. The curb, it's old, but it's actually in okay shape. It does drain the water, so you could leave the curb in place, but you really want to try and tackle a resurfacing in a relatively soon manner.
Got it. And rough idea of the cost?
I would say for a size like that, you're talking maybe $5,000. Depends on the paver. It's a little bit of curves and stuff like that, so it might be a little bit more.
I think it's a no-brainer. I think we make it look nice. New beach area, old parking lot. It's like pouring new wine in an old wineskin.
Yeah, I think too, if that's the accessible parking, it's a little cruel to have that be just awful pavement if you're trying to, get around on a wheeled device of some kind. So it seems like a no-brainer as well. Cool. Is everybody hearing consensus? Great. All right. Our new item 8A, Lyman P. White.
Want to
Jesse
kick it
and
off, or do
Paul.
you want me to? Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for moving me up. I have to go pick up my kid at 5 o'clock. So tonight in front of you, we're looking for authorization to bid the stream bank restoration project. Quick recap. So the restoration project includes all the labor, materials, tools, and equipment to basically complete the bank stabilization project, which includes habitat improvements along the bank of the Mississippi, selective tree harvest, tree plantings, grading, 2 years of vegetation management. We call them root wads in the river to promote more habitat for fish species, and reseeding, live staking, and opening up some view sheds on the river from Lyman P. White Park to College Drive. We've completed final plans for the project, what they have in front of you right here. Back up to that top page. The estimated project costs, we're at right around that $200,000 range. We separated out a third year of vegetation management, so that could be in bid alternate, so that if that's something the park board wants to move forward with, based on the contractor's prices, we could include that. So there is 2 years of plant management that the contractor would get paid for, to come back and replace trees, live stakes, or things that might die in those first 2 years. That third year would be optional if the park board wants to move forward with it once bids come back. With that, we would open bids on the 17th. We have a mandatory on-site meeting with any potential contractors on the 8th that we typically like to do to make sure they understand the project, what the construction type is and things, just so that everyone's on the same page when they're submitting their bid. The hope is that a lot of the work can get done this year. Obviously, a lot of the selective tree harvesting and that kind of stuff can get done in the wintertime. In fact, it's preferred for any type of bats or things that might be alive along the riverbank. And we are still currently working on permitting. We've received word from the DNR Public Waters permit that we should be receiving that before bids are open. So that's kind of where we're at from a project standpoint. Jesse's included the cover sheet and the view shed planning sheets in the packet. Really, we're just looking for authorization to bid. We would come back in the November meeting and review bids with you guys.
Questions for Paul? Kevin?
I'm ready with a motion whenever.
Oh, yeah.
If there is anything.
I don't have anything.
I'll make a motion to authorize for bidding the Mississippi Restoration Project.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Paul.
Have a good night. Paul. All right, our next item, discussion regarding the recreation coordinator position / job description. Chris and or Jesse.
Good evening, Park Board members. As you are aware, our recreation coordinator, Katie Kaufman, resigned on October 13th. And on October 16th, the City Council had asked or accepted her resignation, but also asked for input from the Park Board regarding the current job description for the recreation coordinator position. When staff reviewed that job description, one thing that we had recommended was to change the minimum years of experience from 5 years to 3 years, hoping that would help increase your applicant pool. Really, that was the only change that we saw. I have also included in your agenda request the wage for this position for 2023 as well. Just wondering if there's any input or anything else you would like to share or discuss regarding this position.
Thank you. Questions for Chris? Dave?
Not necessarily questions for Chris, but just in my talks with the Personnel and Finance Chair, what the council is looking for here is guidance as to what you want to see done with this position. I think what they're basically giving you is an opportunity to review what it is you want done with it. I know that in the last handful of years, the makeup of this department has changed. And so the council view is that now would be the time to make appropriate changes to what you want, if anything, this position to be. So less than just, do you want to hire? More so, take the opportunity to look at this position, make sure that it is what you want it to be, because once someone is in this position will continue forward. So now is the appropriate time for you guys to take a look at it.
Thoughts? Kevin?
Thank you. My thoughts exactly. So when I got news of this, obviously my mind went to a lot of different directions, but the first thing that popped into my mind was I'm not 100% convinced that this position needs to be filled. It may need to be refilled, but I just feel like I don't have enough information to know that for sure, and I feel like I have suspicions that there may be a better way of doing, and not just a less expensive, but a better way of doing the same type of work. So now, whatever duration of time may pass, and I may end up sitting here saying, oh, absolutely, we need to rehire somebody, but I'm not convinced. So I think that we've obviously, over the last couple of years, seen that we can partner with other entities in our community and do a bang-up job with programming. This is kind of part of that. So if I look at the position as programming, special events, and some version of a presence on social media, that type of thing, is kind of a very loose summary of what I feel like Katie was bringing to the table. And that's those parts and pieces. I think we could maybe look at either hiring an outside entity to help us with those, to at least maybe the ability we were doing them, maybe even better. So I know this sounds like a lot of work, and sounds like we're going to need to dig into this and maybe seek some RFPs and that type of thing. But I just don't feel like I have enough information to say it is a great idea to just rehire this position. In fact, I'm thinking kind of the opposite. So I personally would like to use this time of year, which is working to our advantage, to just fret this out for a few months and say, are we sure this is the right thing for us moving forward? Dave, excellent point. Once they're in, you can't get rid of them. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And from a council standpoint, this is a position that is within the city, obviously, but it is really under the guidance of what you're looking for. It is under the charter in terms of what you're able to hire. So it is a city employee. However, it is in our best interest to make sure that it is something that you are interested in having and what that looks like. So very happy that the council took that position, is that send it here. This is the right place to take a look at that. So
And to follow up, I would just like to say thank you for the council for kicking this back to us and just giving us this time to fret this out. That's good. Appreciate it.
Jesse?
If I can help, just quick clarified timeline. Obviously more than okay with continuing to review the position. My one concern would be warming house attendance, pond hockey programming. We're on a timeline. If we don't advertise the position soon, we probably wouldn't have somebody in place. I mean, if we're hiring right away, in place for that program. So if we want to move this process through some more evaluation, do we want to look at those programs for this year and do something different for them? We don't have too much time, at least for those specific programs. Obviously, next summer we do have a little bit more flexibility, but the winter programming is something that's pretty high on my mind.
Andrew, if I may?
Sure. Yeah.
With that being said, Jesse, can we bullet list those main events that Katie kind of ran, especially for this winter, and reach out to, we had two of them here tonight, YMCA and Community Ed. I know Community Ed does do those winter programs for Baxter, and ask them if they'd be interested and to sit down and talk with them and give them some information on what's needed and have them give us a quote on, well, one, if they're interested, and then two, what it would cost. And I think that's what we need, not obviously initially for this winter, what's coming up right away, but even for those events that Katie was a part of and ran, during the summer months, the more busy months, and maybe put that in their lap as well and say, any interest here, back to what Kevin, I think, and Dave is saying is there another way to do this? And we've been through this before when Tony Saylor resigned and looking at, do we want to move in the direction of replacing this position, or do we want to move in the direction of farming it out? But obviously timing is of the essence with winter coming for the pond hockey and the ice rinks.
Dave, then Kevin.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. So I spoke with a couple parents that have kids that do use the pond hockey program, just kind of trying to get a feel for what that might look like. There are potential other options of how to do it. I know that CLC runs a fall baseball program that is essentially kind of pay to play. You show up on the days you can, which is one of the issues we have with pond hockey, is that because of the way the scheduling is for hockey kids, there are just days they can't make it. So they may be on a team, but they can't make it one day because the way ice time works at the Civic Center and whatnot is just, if anyone's ever seen hockey, it is an interesting rotation of chaos. But there is potential to maybe run something like that as well, that we could do. We have a program, but it is a show up, participate on those days when you can, which would mean less of a actual organized thing and more of just having a couple people there that are there on those days to help run that. So there's potential for it. I wanted to get a feel for what people were thinking with that. And there are people that they did say, we really enjoyed this program because it's more ice time for our kids and it's more of a relaxed atmosphere for them. However, they even listed the limitations that are there. So there's potential there for either organizing something else or doing something more loose as well.
Kevin?
Yes, and one thing I just wanted to throw out is, as a potential option, a question maybe for Chris, is an interim director. So something we could look at is, do we go ahead and advertise for an interim director that, provided that we don't have to necessarily provide that interim director with a permanent position. If we can have a time where we can see how that interim director did, that may actually be really eye-opening for us to just, maybe an interim director comes in here and is like, wow, they're doing amazing. Why would we not move forward with this as another option? Provided that if it isn't going amazing, we can say, okay, I've decided to go a different direction. So that's really a question for you, Chris, is an interim director a possibility, and the possibility to not move forward?
So one thing is probably interim coordinator, not a
Or, sorry,
director.
coordinator,
Yes,
yes.
just to make sure we're all clear on that. With that said, all of our temporary employees can be hired for up to 67 days. And that would be the same for this type of position. That is a requirement by state law, because after that 67 days, then they are entitled to union membership. So then the unions can start getting involved with negotiating wages and things like that. So within that 67 days, I'm hoping that your winter program would be fairly well complete, and then you could get done with that. That is 67 working days. It is not 67 calendar days as well. When I saw your faces, I'm going, I got to clarify that,
I
so.
was going to be like, I instantly withdraw that opinion.
Yes. So you do have some time if that is something that you would like to pursue. We can try to see if we can find some kind of an ad or something else that maybe a different community has used to try to advertise for something like that. You just need to let us know when you want us to start advertising, what that you want that person to do. So we really need guidance more from the park board exactly and that kind of thing. And then also the wage that you would like that position to be paid.
I think the first and primary question when we're talking about getting or potentially eliminating this position is, where do these responsibilities fall on the rest of our current staff? And what does that do to everybody else? I mean, again, we can list the responsibilities here specifically on the packet. I'm not sure a lot of these things were being done, or maybe some more in one different way, but what is the strain that the immediate impact we're talking about is hiring employees to fill these positions, but I mean, are we going to feel it? Are we feeling it already, Jesse? I think is kind of my main question.
So just to clarify, we don't have other recreation staff. So really the only other people are our maintenance staff that really aren't kind of qualified to run the recreation programs, concessions, food handlers, licenses and stuff like that. This is more of I'll call it a professional type of position. It requires a degree, years of experience, certain licensing and certifications. And the same thing for our admin specialist. This probably wouldn't be something that they would be able to take on in their daily duties. So to Kevin's point, it would be something that we might solicit for a Y or a community ed to help run if it's not somebody internally that would be running the program. Concessions would be something that we could explore for future seasons, and obviously we won't need it necessarily for winter, but something we would want to look at position moving forward. So.
Oh, Chris, sorry, yeah.
And then I do have to mention the strain that this department already is under. Brittany's last day is actually tomorrow. So not only are you down a recreation coordinator, your administrative specialist is leaving at the same time. So other staff members are trying to absorb those other duties during the hiring process. So it is a strain at this point.
And I do feel that our park system is immense. We have a lot of recreation, and recreation is kind of the focus on a lot of this conversation. Can we give it out to the Y? Can we do, community? But we do have also the parks side of the recreation and the direction of all of those things as well. I'm not totally against maybe even reformatting the way that this position needs to read, but the park system itself is immense, and the recreation and the people, I mean, we've gone through the budget and the P&L for the park system this year. I mean, spent a lot of different money in a lot of different places, and it's a lot of, it's a lot to manage. And I'm not sure even putting a few of the recreation items out to a couple of different organizations, is necessarily in our best interest. Maybe it is. I mean, we'll talk about the financials there, but the future of the park system and what we're trying to build maybe needs some centrally located person to make that more obvious within the community, as we talked even with this whole 2% and long-term plan, getting people involved in our park system. And I think they're having a figurehead like that can do those administrative duties, the marketing, things like that, is still an essential person. As far as our staff's concerned, again, no admin level really in the parks department. Somebody to speak on behalf of us and the work that we're doing and the city is doing, also promotes the long-term health of the system as well and gets the usage up. So it's very important I think, to have this type of person. Maybe not with this a level of, again, the recreation side of things, but it is pretty important. And a lot of people have responded well to the organization within the recreation side of this Parks and Recreation Coordinator position. So I do like the idea of having somebody in the position that can speak to us, like boots on the ground, be able to have conversation when people aren't here, and speak to all of that, and really be a person that represents what we're trying to accomplish as well on the board. So again, maybe a revamp of the responsibilities, but I'm just not sure if staff can handle the functionality. And even if community ed and the YMCA can pick up some of our programs, building the events around our parks and things like that is maybe not something that city staff is going to do. And we may need to hire somebody on just, to do something like that. So a coordinator position, I think, is still an ideal spot.
Troy.
So I think that's a valid point, Jonathan, and especially when I look forward to the summer softball program, summer kickball and fall. That's a huge part of this. And I think, can we do both? Can we put something out there for an interim, and in the meantime have a good conversation with community ed and the YMCA, because community ed has their hands full with the programs that they're running right now, and with Joe Polkamp, that position being gone for them, a new guy stepping in and trying to run that stuff for them. I think it might be a little difficult. I mean, that's years that he's been doing it, and likewise with Katie. I think we'd have to have a really good feel about, can community ed come to our park board meetings and say, this is what's happening, this is how this went, and, with the different, the Easter egg hunts and the fishing deal and the pumpkin deal and, all these different programs that Katie was doing. I think it's probably worth exploring, but I think we'd have to have a really good feel that community ed or YMCA could tackle this stuff. I'm not so sure that they can either, but I'm also think we should look at it. But again, the clock's ticking. You're leaving. That's too bad. But can we do both? I guess that's my question. Can we put something out there for an interim, and maybe it ends up being a bang up person, and talk to community ed? Because my feel is they might say, I don't know that we want to take on this summer softball program and all the other stuff that was going on. That's a pretty big job there, or
Chris?
So I'm hoping we could do both. We can certainly try and see what we find. Usually we advertise for around 3 weeks, and that'll give you a really good feel at that point if you're going to get a good successful candidate or not to fill in for at least the winter season, and then start your discussions with community ed or the Y or whoever to see if you can do those types of things. I just need to make sure I'm fully understanding what the park board wants this position to do right now is your interim person. How many hours? What do you expect? Those types of things, rate of pay. All of that is something that I need to make sure I'm understanding before we start to advertise. I don't want to give someone unclear expectations and set them up to fail.
Yeah, Troy.
my opinion is hire them full-time. And at whatever pay fits their, if it's interim and if they're a good candidate, we want to be able to see, that, yes, they can do this job and they can do it well. And so this position, I think if it has the right person, could be very, very helpful to the park system. Somebody who's very positive and goal-oriented, and so I'm just putting this out there. Mine is that my opinion is we hire them full-time and for whatever level they fit as far as their commensurate with their skill level.
So can I clarify, when you say full-time, is that a temporary full-time position? Or
temporary
a
full-time.
permanent or a regular full-time, a temporary full-time
Temporary
position?
interim position with the possibility of it turning into a
Right.
full.
As far as if you find the right person, we have an internal only process for hiring as well. So if you get someone in here that's a rock star and is someone you really like, then we only have to, since this is a supervisory position, not a union position, we would only have to post it for 3 days, and then the council could take action to start that person right away. You wouldn't have to do an entire full hiring process again if you didn't want to. So that is very helpful. The other thing I wanted to mention is when Katie was actually hired, she was hired at a recreation specialist rate or classification. So that was different than the coordinator. The specialist was a entry-level position that just had gotten their degree. At that point, they didn't need many years of experience, or it was either some coursework in recreation activities and then 3 years of experience, or a combination of education and experience to meet that. So, I mean, that's another option too, if you didn't want to try to hire a full coordinator. You could start with a specialist and see how that works. And if that person works out really well, it could be a promotional opportunity, just like it was for Katie too.
So yeah, that kind of fits what I wanted to mention as well. I'm not a huge fan of education requirements, mainly because if you get the right candidate, you have the right candidate. And putting an arbitrary number on here, like a bachelor's degree, no offense, but I just don't believe that bachelor's degrees set someone up to run softball programs. That may just be me, but I just don't correlate the two between, as someone that's paying for a daughter at the U of M, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know what that has to do with running a softball program, but I'd like to see us look at that as well. I feel the same way in terms of our city administrator, that we're currently looking for as well. Education requirements for that stuff means very little to me. Are you able to do the job? Are you capable of doing the job is my first thing. And then this may be an opportunity as well to look at that type of stuff in terms of if you are going to change what this position is, then what do those requirements in terms of education mean as well? Because if it's going to be less of one thing and more of another, shifting to someone that has a background in design or whatever is a completely different thing. If it's a marketing position, well, then you should be looking for a marketing person as well. So I just want to make sure from the council side of things that we're looking at this holistically and that you're making sure that you have an idea of what you're looking for. And then secondary to this, keeping the eyes on dollars and cents, I do not think that we as a city have a good grasp as to what this position is in terms of dollars for what is being done. I have felt that way my entire time on the council, that this is a position that we continually talk about how much X versus Y does and costs, but there's not really a correlation as to what something is. And I'll just bring up softball as an example. I would like to see us have a better grasp as to what that is, because if we're going to bring this to community ed, what is the time frame that this person's been doing? How much work have they been doing for this? How much money does that actually cost? We as a city do not do a good job of keeping track of those types of things. And then this puts us in a weird position now where if we were to take it to community ed, I would feel like we don't have the correct information for them. We would have to figure out that information before you present it to them. So I'd like to see us get a grasp on that as well. What did this job entail in terms of time for activities? If it is Great Pumpkin Fest is X amount of time, fishing clinic, Easter egg, that's X amount of time, marketing is X amount of time, recreation is X amount of time. I think we need to get a better grasp of that so that we can make the right decision as well.
Oh, John.
Yeah, I think, as far as the temporary is concerned, I think it's great because you can get a fresh set of eyes in. If we were missing something, if there's ways to improve the program, whether it's the marketing, whether it's, how the recreation's run, the way that we've accumulated sponsors, work with local partners, have somebody come in, take a look, get the basic responsibilities of posting jobs and doing that thing out. But can this person put together a plan within the amount of time? What does that plan look like, and how do they identify the position and the responsibilities that we've provided? Because I do think the essential functions are a comprehensive list of what this position can do. But what does that look like on paper, and how much time are we spending doing all those things, right? And, you know, again, with the recreation, like building that future, if we do keep the softball in-house, these guys want 8-foot fences. How do we eventually get to that point where we can build our softball program to be something bigger, right? So, you know, I think finding someone in the interim and having them put together a plan and a future of the Parks and Recreation system that they will oversee is something I'd really like to see. Because I think basic functions like posting jobs and things like that is kind of arbitrary and can be taught based on whatever system is being used to do that. But actually going out there and seeing a future the way that we see it and kind of being that voice is something that, you know, we want to probably have the right candidate for. So the temporary makes perfect sense to me, in my opinion. And the list of responsibilities makes perfect sense to me. But having it in a temporary way and seeing how that shapes out is ideal, I think.
Chris, would a interim recreation specialist be a possibility too, or is that not okay, cool.
It's whatever you want to call it. So,
I think that's an interesting option to me because that gives us a little bit more room to keep the lights on with pond hockey and with the warming houses. It gives us a look at this person in that role. Like if they're crushing it, that changes probably what we want to do. But it also doesn't lock us into having someone with that experience in that role. And so if we take a step back and we say, listen, we need someone to run our programs, but maybe we're going to contract out to do special events. Maybe that person is still a good fit. And if we hire someone trying to one-to-one do an interim Katie, I feel like that maybe won't give us the perspective and the time to step back to look at what we really want this to do. So I think I would like that opportunity because it's presented itself. So if we can find someone, right, recent grad or right, a little bit of experience who we feel confident can run like a pickup pond hockey. Like I'm seeing $304 of revenue from pond hockey. So like it's a pretty low stakes learning opportunity. And it sounds like there's a fresh set of ideas could really make that a better option. So I would, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, in my opinion, if we do this, we pay them the most possible we can. In my opinion, you want to get the best person in the door. The only way to do that is to offer, in my mind, the highest step that we can bring them into, maybe even at that coordinator level, and just see what we get. Because they would only go up from there. They would hypothetically turn into our coordinator, which they'd be at that point anyways. I would try to get the best person possible with a description, the money, but then also I would try to format in such a way that we're just saying, this is kind of what our other person was doing. If you have other ideas, I would love to have a free thinking person in here that can say, look, this is what was happening before. These are the weaknesses that I see. Here's maybe another way of doing this. That's what I'd ideally like to see. Now that could be completely impossible, but in the meantime, there's a task that need to get done while you're trying to earn a position here in the city. So.
Yeah, I do like that too.
Yeah, I don't think that's impossible. So.
Yeah, I like that too, and I also like Dave's point as far as the bachelor degree. We could just say preferred. I don't think make it a requirement. Preferred job experience is well overlooked, way overlooked, and agree with everything else you guys have said. Let's get someone in. And the only thing I haven't heard is, Jesse, what are your thoughts on this position? As far as, do we need it? Can we outsource this stuff?
I think some of these tasks could easily be outsourced, like some of the activities we've talked about, like softball. A question about whether or not community ed or YMCA would be willing to take it, that's a different conversation, obviously. But some of the other things like marketing, coordinating our ball fields and the schedules and who's practicing when, those are things that we need somebody here to help coordinate the contracts and the agreements and the communications between those different groups. Having a central person to help guide those conversations is really important. And I know I can't personally put my time into that with all the different other groups that I'm helping manage. So that's really difficult for me, but having a central person that can direct all of those different YMCA, community ed, and all the different activities that are happening all at the same time, who's in what fields and games and all that stuff, that person's going to be big. Special events, I mean, that's really up to the park board, I would say, is how many special events, and obviously the more special events, if you hire it out, the more cost, and it's not really a big, special events aren't a moneymaker for the city by any means. It's kind of a service we're providing. We're gathering donations. So having somebody that goes out there, gets those donations so that we can hold those different special events. Can that look differently? Can we look for different ways of generating revenue? To your point, having somebody come in and have a different set of eyes on that, come up with some maybe different ideas. Hey, I've seen this elsewhere. That seemed to work really good. That's something that we definitely could explore. But for the position, whether or not it's a coordinator or a specialist, I think it could go either way. But I don't know if what we have in our current system, we could make it work without a person in that position. Things like concession stands, that one would be really hard to outsource. And how to get those to be run on a basis. So I hate to have those sit empty for seasons. So from that perspective, I'd like to see somebody in the position. But what that looks like, maybe it's a little bit less in the recreation, a little bit more marketing, a little bit more on special events, or some combination of those things. I would look to the park board of what they would want to prioritize with that position.
Thank you. Is it more clear now?
A little.
Can
I
you see
think
through the mud?
what I'm understanding is you're looking more like a recreation specialist than a coordinator to start with. And maybe advertising that way, and then get someone on board. Why I'm saying that as well is the council has given firm direction as far as where you can put someone initially on our wage grid. There has to be education and experience, qualifications in order for them to progress on the steps. All job offers are supposed to start at step 1 unless they have additional education and experience beyond the minimums to go beyond that. There are sometimes an opportunity to do some things creative, but I would have to ask for special permission from the council to go anything beyond that initial step placement policy. With that said, I also wanted to make sure you are fully aware that we have for either a recreation specialist or a coordinator a 1-year probationary period. So if this is not working out, you have an opportunity to say thank you, but no thanks. And then that position is done, and then you could start over your hiring process or whatever. That's what we have for our full-time management positions, is a 1-year probationary period.
That's a good point.
Does help, yeah. Well, then we get the full season, you know what I mean? Every season of recreation as well for a full year.
It would be certainly more appealing to an applicant.
Yeah, well, for sure, especially if we're going to start them a little lower. But again, if we set the qualifications a little bit lower and they're more qualified, we can pay them more. Okay, so we can have a scale. So, you know, so we can start everybody at step 1 or whatever, not even advertise in step 1. We can advertise in a range.
Right, we advertise, you see in the agenda request, steps 1 through step 4 is our hiring range, depending on what their education and experience is. So if they meet just the minimums, they should be starting at step 1. If it's a specialist, they have a degree with 3 years of experience, they could go to step 2. If they have more than the 3 years of experience, they can go higher than that. Those types of things is what the council has given me latitude to be able to work with an applicant.
What if we changed it to 1 year of experience? So that if we had someone with more experience, they could, to your point, Kevin, like someone comes to us with 5 years of experience, I would want them to.
When I explored this position, it was 2 years in recreation, hospitality. Like there was a wide range, but usually 2 to 3 years of some form of experience, whether it's recreation, hospitality, like communications, that sort of thing. And the degrees varied based on the posting. But yeah, to your point, I mean, we can set a bar that's a little lower and have more varying experiences and try to dial it in. But
My only comment on that is be careful with that, because from a city, the reason why we have that policy is that we have a step system. That is how you continue to grow in our organization. That's how you continue to get your raises. We want people coming in at step one because that is what we've established as the place you come in at. If you're just lowering the bar so that someone can come in at a higher step, you're getting very counterproductive to what our actual system is. So if that's the goal of that, be careful of that. That's not really what the city's looking for. We're looking for the ability if someone was to come in and say, oh, I clearly am higher on the steps, but don't set the bar lower just in order to do that.
And that's what I was saying, like, you could still have that minimum level of experience, just maybe have a little bit wider of a range of experience and not just
Yeah,
like.
you weren't saying remove, you weren't saying. bring
Yeah,
it a higher
don't
step.
just burn all this to the ground. No, I'm saying like you could do more years of experience just spread out into different things that do impact a position like this. So I think a specialist, give them a 1-year position, or 1-year probationary period, pretty straightforward. I think the list of responsibilities is pretty clear. Like I said, maybe tweaking the experience required is fine, but I don't know necessarily. Like I said, in my research, it was high school diploma equivalent, 2 to 3 years in hospitality, coordination, that sort of thing, marketing. And then some will have like administration, associate degrees, and then preferred qualifications after that. So,
Jesse?
If I can just quick clarify, so Chris pulled it up, the range for wages for the specialist role is roughly about $1.50 less than the coordinator role. And the big difference there is because of the education difference. So having the 4-year degree obviously bumps you up in a range. So that's kind of what we're looking at it as a difference in wages between the two.
and we can pay them less for less education, I think, on the floor. I think that's totally fair too. So we're putting a statement on, 1-year probationary period and acknowledging that exists, we can find the best candidate and they can move up through our organization that way as well. And I mean, again, we're trying to shape something as well, so we want somebody in position that wants to be a part of the growth of this entire program, so.
So if we're going away from the interim idea and doing the year, how will we tweak this so we make it more like what we want, as far as like maybe more focused on the marketing, or, that means we'd have to change that like right now in order for you guys to post.
So I can clarify that things like marketing and hosting the special events, as long as the park board wants that person to do those tasks, it's important that it's just covered in here. Now, whether or not it's, more focus on one thing or the other, that's more of a direction thing that we can just direct that person to do. But the important thing is that it's in there, because if it wasn't in there and we expected them to, let's take special events for instance, if we didn't have it in the job description, it wouldn't be fair to us to expect them to run special events after they're in. So we just want to make sure that if you have things that you want that person to do, they are reflected in here. And if there's things that you don't expect them to do, that they're not necessarily in here either, because that can also affect the range too, because obviously less responsibility means, technically less wage usually. So is there something more clarifying in here that you'd like to see? Again, if we want to do more special events, that's fine. We can just direct that person. We want to see maybe once a month an event rather than what it is now. But at least it's covered in the job description. So the expectation is there that they will have to.
Like I said, I thought the list of essential functions lined up with a lot of what I saw, and there are some areas in here like assist the public works director as needed, performs administrative specialist duties as needed, or Parks Department administrative specialist duties as needed. So there are, enough of the vague things that if we do have to audible or give them direction, that it is in there. So I felt like the functions lined up with what I had researched as well.
So would we still have the opportunity to pull, so let's say we look into having community ed or the YMCA run our adult softball and pickleball, but let's say they do all of our programming. Could we pull that from them, this new person, still, even though it's listed on there as something they might be doing already?
We can always have them do less.
Okay.
The issue is doing more.
Okay.
And I'd feel like in that position, they'd be more of a liaison to those organizations anyway, on behalf of the city. So, they'd still kind of be involved.
So then, so we do the year, but we as a park board are still going to be discussing, like, what do we want this position to look like? Is that what we're kind of thinking still? That we could, yeah,
I think it needs to be an ongoing,
right.
and we can't lose track of it, because we could easily lose track of this, and we can't.
Yeah.
And so that's why I asked if we could, parallel the conversations with community ed. And if we hire someone, I mean, let's face it, we don't want to hire the worst person possible. We want to get, the best. We want to get someone good at this, where we can look at this and say, wow, this person is just, they're really highly effective in what we're asking them to do, and perhaps even more so. And then we can have those conversations with them also that, we've been looking at farming out these special activities that Katie used to do or you're going to do, but I think we need to, we have time to do this. I don't think we have time to sit on this, and so I'm just about ready to make a motion that we move forward with hiring, knowing that we have time to meet with other community. Andrew?
Oh,
Chris?
oh, sorry, Chris. Yep.
Just one more comment, sorry to monopolize this. So your job description is supposed to be a living, breathing document. It isn't supposed to be stagnant. So you can think, this is what we want this position to be, but maybe in a year after going through this, you know what, let's tweak this a little bit. And that is just fine. You can update job descriptions as you need to. You aren't stuck with something, and I want to make sure you're fully aware of that too.
I think just two comments for me then. One, I do think it would be good to add something to the job description about documenting processes. I think that has become apparent in the past week or two that some documentation would have been helpful. I forgot number two. Yeah, just one then.
I have a comment too. So community ed, they're looking for a coach and coordinator. I feel like we also they're having their meeting and they're going to present to us in November, right? So I feel like maybe there should be at least some kind of conversation that happens to know if their coordinator, if they're only looking for a baseball coordinator, or are they looking for just like a full-time coordinator of all of their their sports, or I just feel like there should maybe, if we're both looking for the same thing, not that we need to hire the same person, but maybe there's like a shared situation there. And I don't know how cities share things like that, but we at least need to like maybe ask about it or find out more about it. That's just my opinion, I guess, just to see if there was a way that person could run their baseball program, but then somehow run our softball program for adults, or how could that be a possibility? I don't know.
Jesse.
And I just want to clarify Troy's motion. You're looking to advertise for the specialist position, not the coordinator position. Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, we're bringing them in at step one, right?
That will be what the job offer would be. With that said, if they have higher education and experience beyond the minimum that is noted in the job description, they could start higher.
Fantastic, I'll second.
Further discussion. Oh, I thought of my second point. I think kind of the consensus is we're looking for someone who's interested in transforming kind of our department, so if we can highlight that in the listing of like, hey, here's what we have today, but the best candidate is someone who's got their ideas about how they would want this to operate and is willing to partner with the board to make that change happen. Cool. All right. Any other discussion? Those we can, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Don't get to see it the board too often. It's probably a good thing. Not that we don't like you, but okay. Yep. Next item, 2024 campground host agreement. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have the 2024 campground host agreement. It's essentially the same as the 2023 campground host agreement. Bill and Teresa have expressed their desire to come back again next year. Our staff have felt that they've done a really great job of kind of watching over things over there and making sure that we're aware of any issues pretty quickly. So we're recommending moving forward with them as the campground host in 2024.
Motion to approve, Jaeger.
Second, Miller.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's approved. 2024 proposed facility fee schedule, Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just trying to get ourselves lined up for the 2024 year. Most everything is the same as the previous year. I did want to highlight one, call it a major change, but one kind of facility change is the campground rates. Something that we found with the software that we use for the reservation. It doesn't do very well with the varying rates between days. So we had a Monday through Thursday rate and a Friday through Sunday rate. If somebody wanted to stay for several days over, let's say, a Thursday through Saturday, the software wouldn't let them do that reservation. They'd have to do two separate reservations, one for the Thursday rate and one for the Friday, Saturday rate. So most people didn't figure that out, so it ended up being our admin that did an awful lot of them by hand throughout the year. So kind of trying to solve that problem is just doing one flat rate for the entire week for the campground. We can provide like a senior discount, military veterans discount, but just keeping the same flat rate throughout the entire week. So we moved it in the proposal here from 55 for the weekend to the same as the rest of the week at 50, and then the reduction of senior rate at 40. And this actually does seem to jive pretty close with some of our comparable that Brittany was able to put together in the other attachment that she was able to collect from nearby campgrounds. So this kind of keeps us in line there as well. But other than that, most everything else is the same. So I just wanted to highlight that recommended change.
Excuse me. Questions, comments?
So just from a reservation standpoint for something else, not the campground. Let's say Mills Field, for example, right? We have a rate that is with lights, without lights, 2-hour blocks. Do we divide those? So if somebody rents it and it starts at 3 in the afternoon, are they paying $150 because they're going to go till midnight, or are they paying? It's a big jump. It's a big jump to turn the lights on, which is great. I love that. I think it should cost money to turn the lights on because it does. But I just was curious because that one stuck out to me as it's $100 difference between having the lights on and having the lights off. But you may have it all day and need to turn the lights on. Do we charge all day for the lights, or?
I believe we would charge them two different rates.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
So
Yeah.
So if we can charge two different rates for the lights and not lights, why can't we charge two different rates for the weekend, non-weekend?
I'd have to double check how the software is set up with that one. It may be one of those situations where they'd have to do it separate, but because that happens so infrequently, I wouldn't think that would be a big deal for our admin to do those one-offs. The campground, there's just so many different reservations that occur. That's a little bit of a burden.
Understood, yep. I mean, software is not my thing, but this seems like a software problem, not really a booking problem. I'm assuming this software is fairly expensive. The city bought it, so it's got to be, right?
This one actually jives really well with our other civic programs. That's the benefit of this one. There are a lot of other softwares that I'm sure probably do address this, but probably don't communicate very well with our other softwares that the city uses.
It's just the dumb question is, somebody reached out to our software provider and said, hey, this is the problem we're having. Is there any way to fix this? And we got crickets, or there was...
I believe our IT ask that question.
Okay, because this seems like a really simple thing. This day costs this much, put it in the shopping cart. The next day costs this much, put it in the shopping cart. What? I don't know. If this is the easy fix, we'll move on, but.
I have a motion to approve the new fee schedule.
Second.
I had two things. Oh, my God. I'm just killing us. I'll be quick. Based on the habitat thing that came up last meeting, I thought a weekly, and this might break the software too, if we could offer a weekly rate, get 7 days, pay for 6, we clearly have capacity at the campground. I feel like throwing that out there wouldn't hurt unless it, again, breaks the software. That was just an idea that came up the other day. And then the second one is, I was on PlugShare earlier today. There were a couple comments about Lum Park Campground and how you can charge there, which is great. And somebody posted like, I paid the hosts $5 and they let me charge, which is cool. And it was like 9 years ago, so who knows? But would it kill us to say it's $5 to charge a car for 4 hours or overnight? Like you get 12 hours. I mean,
What are you, the electrical department? What is happening here? What is happening?
people are already doing it. That's my only, like, anyway, those are two things. We can take them or leave them, but those are thoughts I had. Troy.
I would personally like to not see, I'd like to leave it alone until we have our new campsites in place and see what we have for capacity and
Love that.
with the new beach being modernized, if you will, and just to see if we have more people coming, showing up before we change things up.
Totally. Cool. Any other discussion?
I'll just say the fact that we're doing any version of handwork in 2023 for a reservation for a campsite is preposterous. Come on. That's all.
Yeah, I guess if this was a nightmare, feel free to bring this to us earlier. Sounds like you spent Brittany probably spent a bajillion hours doing this, so like.
This isn't why you're quitting, is it? I'm sorry. Can I say that? I didn't.
But if this is that much of a burden, please let us know. Like, I'm sure we can change this middle of the year. We can't?
You can. The issue you run into is after you've changed it, any future reservations.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a software thing.
It should be my jam. Yeah. All right. All in favor of the fee schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign. That's approved. We're going to get you to 6 o'clock, Troy. Approved donation or sale of surplus rec equipment, Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I included an awful lot of pictures here. Our cold storage building at Lum is very full with a lot of rec equipment that we don't use. So this is kind of predating when we were running baseball internally and all the other different activities. So a lot of baseball and t-ball equipment, pads, gloves. Some of it's brand new in the box. Really, obviously, we're not talking about taking those programs back on internally anytime soon. We'd like to see that equipment not only not be in our cold storage shed, but getting used somewhere else. There's somebody that might have some value of it. Really kind of getting some direction from the park board on it. Do we want to essentially donate the equipment or do we want to essentially sell it secondhand? I mean, Play It Again Sports would probably pay us a sum of money for all of that equipment. Do we want to donate it to another community with those programs or reach out to the Y or the community ed, see if that's something that could help them out with their programming? Really looking for direction from the park board on how they'd like to handle all this equipment.
Can we just
Look at the hands
Can we go
going up.
down this list? I mean, can we just go down the list and see if we can donate it first and then
I have an idea.
send it?
That was my, go ahead.
Troy?
Community Ed was just here tonight talking about the cost of equipment and different things. And, there's some new stuff there. Baseballs are expensive, helmets are expensive, face masks are expensive, gear is expensive. And if we can give them gear to help offset some of their costs and help offset their request for additional funds from us, because we've gave them, some of it we have to be careful of, because somebody really has to look this over, because a lot of that equipment that I just looked at, they can't use, and they shouldn't use, especially catcher's gear and stuff of that sort. But, you know, I don't know about the hockey equipment, but I'm just speaking of the baseball stuff, or anything that the community ed or the Y can use to help offset some of their costs. Would that not also offset some of their fund requests to us? You know, it's just sitting there right now, and if it can help them financially, that will help us financially.
I'd like to make a motion to invite Community Ed and the YMCA to our open house to take what they want and use for our programs and sell the rest.
I'll second that.
Dave?
Yeah, this was already motioned. When you made the agreement with those programs, I'm pretty sure you motioned to have this equipment turned over at that point. So I'm really confused as to why we're seeing this 3 years later. Because I may be wrong, and I often am, but I am pretty sure that the direction was given to hand this stuff over when we shifted over to those programs. So
I don't know that we actually did. I know we talked
I think we
about it,
did.
but I don't know that we made a motion to actually do it,
I think we did.
because we were still not even sure it was going to work.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So when we first did this, it was a trial basis to see if it even worked. So why would we hand it over if we decided a year later, this isn't working, we still need it?
Sure,
So
3 years later, we figured
I think we
out
talked
it.
about it, but I don't think we actually made a motion to.
Well, we
do it.
figured it out 3 years later that it turns out we didn't need it.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion?
But I have one more thing, is some of this stuff is really expensive, and that's what I'm saying, is if we were to give this all away to them, and then they still come back and say, we need $8,000 more for fees, you know, at some point, we know what we paid for it, at least when we bought it. So I would like to see it inventoried somewhat versus just say, come and take whatever you need. They could look through it and say, these are things I need, but maybe we could make an itemized list of what that is. And you know, I'm not trying to be petty about this, but I'm trying to be I'm trying to be financially responsible, because this stuff does cost a lot of money.
Specialist day one, or the entire cold storage. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think in theory they would not come back and ask for more money because we've offset the cost using equipment. But in reality, I think that, yeah, the amount of time spent inventorying all this, and then, you know, I mean, and putting a price tag on each individual item that they take from us, and then, you know, I do agree with you. In theory, we'd like them to ask for less money. So I think if there was a way for them to do that and inventory it and say, okay, we've literally put a, you know, pre-owned price tag on every single one of these items that you've taken from us, and we'd appreciate that ask coming back to us be a little lower, it'd be good, but.
It doesn't have to be an exact. I'm just
Right.
looking for some kind of ballpark figure. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we just give it. I don't know. But it would be nice to know how much they end up taking.
I think trying to put too tight of a dollar value is going to lead to heartbreak. But I think if they take a bunch of stuff and then they come back to us and say, we need $4,000 for softballs,
I
baseballs.
could stand there and watch what goes out the door and put a price tag on it by looking at it. I'm not kidding. I could. But, and so maybe, I mean, I would volunteer to go there if this happens, and just to look at it and say, you know, I could, in my head, have a roundabout figure about what that would cost. I looked at this stuff for 25 years. I know.
And we'll just, as a point, what are we gonna do with that information? We're gonna say, oh, okay, this was that, you gotta take this off your thing, and we gotta let them know before we do this. And if I'm the Y and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get paid buy Brainerd, just go buy new equipment, or I can go over there, rifle through their crap, and then get reimbursed for that same equipment. I'm just gonna go buy the new equipment and save myself the Saturday, personally. I just think it may be over, I don't know how much money we're talking about, but we are talking about equipment that we didn't even know was sitting there for 3 years. Give it away, let's go. Give it to them, that's what I think.
That's kind of where I am too. I think it would be great if we could get some kind of compensation, but to your point, Troy, if some of this isn't even usable,
Much of it isn't. I can
then
guarantee it.
like
Much of that they can't even use.
if anything they take, they're just saving us on a dumpster.
But some of it is expensive, but at least we'd have that anyway. Whether even if we had a price tag or not, we could say, well, we gave you
Yeah.
all this equipment.
Yeah.
So instead of 9,000, we'll give you 8,000. I'm kidding.
Making me nervous, Troy.
That's
I
my
still
job.
think, I still think you already motioned this. I'm just going to repeat that.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we need to amend the
I'm not amending my motion.
I mean, we'll just start. So the motion is that we're gonna start with community action and the YMCA, our programs. Are we then moving to other youths' activities? If there is anybody else that wants to come to the
My motion-
Brainerd, rummage sale and pick what you want, if you're a youth organization, and then ship it off secondhand, or just to those groups and ship it off?
My motion was for to invite community ed and YMCA to an open house to sort through the stuff, see what they want to have, get them both here at the same time so they don't feel like one had first choice, whatever. And then anything that's left over, sell
We
it.
have BBBA up there as well. You want to offer that to them? as
And the
well?
BBBA. I will amend my motion to the BBBA.
Okay.
I'll still second it.
My only comment would be that in terms of baseball stuff, the Y would want T-ball.
Yep, right.
So I would like, at least for them to get first dibs on T-ball since we don't pay community ed to do our T-ball.
That's true. Get them there at the same time, though.
No, community ed doesn't have T-ball?
They don't do our T-ball. They do their own T-ball. So we would be potentially gifting things away from the program we pay for towards a program we do not pay for. So I would just like to see that go towards the group that does ours.
I don't understand. What's the disconnect? They do their own T-ball. That's only Baxter kids?
I'm saying the balls could be used for the people we support.
Yeah,
I think their T-ball is for everyone.
we don't, yeah, it is. I'm not saying it's not. What I'm saying though is that we pay two organizations. One runs T-ball for us. One does not run T-ball for us. They run our other competitive programs, but they don't run our T-ball. So personally, I would just like to see T-ball stuff go to the organization that we work with for T-ball.
Boy, we made this exciting. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Light timer for Memorial Park, Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we did receive a request from a nearby neighbor by Memorial Park requesting that we would install a light timer, kind of similar to the ones with the tennis courts over at Gregory, that if somebody wants to play pickleball or basketball after sunset, they press the timer, goes on for a certain amount of time, then shuts off. We did get a price from Musco. They're estimating about $1,500 for the timer. The installation, I'm guessing, would be a little over $1,000. So if this park board wanted to entertain installing a light timer at the poles at Memorial Park, we would recommend budgeting maybe $3,000 out of the 2024 capital, if you so choose.
I've had us to roll this into our workshop.
I have a quick question. Did you talk to Mr. Kramvik? Did this run across his desk at all? Just out of curiosity.
No.
Okay, so my recommendation here is that we at least bring this conversation over to James because as a person who's worked on the lighting the lighting restrictions, the lighting ordinance for the city of Brainerd for what seems like 7 years. I'd at least like to have him look at it and make sure that we didn't do something over there at that park that does not align with our ordinance. And if I'm not mistaken, even in our park areas, we need to protect the neighboring areas using shielding, not just timers. So not knowing exactly what that is, I just want James to look at it first, read through the current lighting ordinance and make sure that there isn't another system that will fix this before we put in a timer. So run it past him, bring it back to us is what I would, that's what I would say.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes, I'm seeing general consent. Great. Is that good, Jesse, or do you need a motion?
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, item 8G now, yes. I can introduce this. So given the feedback we've had about the ski loons over the entire time I've been on the park board, I thought it would be good for two of us to establish a work group and meet with the Sergeant Thiesing and then City Attorney Langle to understand what we would want to expect from any future agreements with the group. I think we learned a lot when Sergeant Thiesing was here. I think getting a sense of what we would want to have in a contract, if that comes back, would be good. But I think two members of this board could meet and kind of establish this more rapidly and have something kind of sorted out and bring a recommendation back to the full board. So that's kind of my thought, but what does everybody think?
Yes.
Good idea.
Good idea. Yep.
Does anyone like to be on this?
I'm in.
You, did you say?
Yeah, I'm in.
Troy, Kevin? I know John was passionate about this, but I can be a part of it. I don't have to be a part of it.
A group is not just one guy, though. So
Subcommittee. I've served on many subcommittees.
Andrew, I would do it. I would, yep. I would do
Okay.
it.
Great. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to establish a ski loon subcommittee work group with and I'll nominate the first two members as Andrew and Troy.
No.
True.
Oh, sorry, Jonathan and Troy.
I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Is all our new business. Now we have the public forum. There's no clock. Okay, I'll use the laptop. 5:57, we'll open the public forum for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the board. We'll use this time. Yes, if you have comments not about things on the agenda, go ahead.
No, just Chris Denz with the Brainerd Ski Loons. Just want to give you guys an update. We are still looking forward and excited to hopefully work with you guys. I think having that subcommittee will be great so we can have just some smaller group discussions. We are continuing to pursue a lot of different avenues and seeing for what's going to be best for the community, for our members, for everyone involved. So we look forward to working with you. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we will close the public forum. Oh, Brent, is anyone online? Close the public forum here at 5:58 p.m. Staff reports. Jesse.
Thank you. We kind of gave you a little bit of a staffing report with the changes that are upcoming over the next couple months. Brittany, her last day will be tomorrow. Really thankful for her kind of carrying the torch throughout the rest of the summer season and helping us learn a lot more about our systems that we had in place this year. So I do have the report here, kind of the summary of our fall sports, as well as a Great Pumpkin Festival that went really, really well. I would like to highlight something that's not on the report. I'm kind of looking for a little bit of park board direction on. So We ran through a little bit of a stint over the weekend of some vandalism in the parks. The 3 ADA handicap picnic benches were stomped and bent down. Our staff is going to pull them out and try and bend them back, but I have a feeling one of them is completely shot, so we'll have to replace that one. They're roughly about $1,400 a pop, it really sucks. But this one was found at Bain. This is by one of the fields there. The issue is how large it is. Troy reached out to essentially a sandblasting company that would help us kind of remove that. He gave us 2 different quotes. One was about $635 and change. Another one was $900 and change. The reason he gave us 2 is his recommendation is that, considering the size of it, he would recommend just sandblasting the whole wall so it doesn't look like you did work on a portion of it. So his recommendation would be to sandblast the whole wall so it all kind of matches the same color. So that's kind of looking for clarification on how should we address that.
Yeah, I used to have a sandblasting business, and I concur that they should do the whole thing. If they do just that, the only other option is to just do that one back wall, but at that point, he just has to go around the sides, but then he has to do a little taping on the doors probably, but. I would agree with him.
Okay.
It would be best to do the whole thing.
Any other thoughts? Good.
I'll trust the sandblaster on the board.
It'll look a lot different if he just does right where that is.
That and staff is still doing an awful lot of winterization. I think we put a Facebook post. The dock came out of the water today. Memorial Park, the pickleball nets came out. The basketball nets came out. And the Lum Park dump station was winterized today as well. So, again, continuing to transform into winter operations at this point. But other than that, if there's any other questions.
Do they know who did that vandalizing? Is there a camera? But chances of
I'd have to double check the Bain one. I'm guessing not, but we'll double check to make sure. Those are all the different things that we like to send over to the police department to file a report if we can find them. Lyman P. White is going to be a difficult one because we obviously haven't installed the cameras there yet, but yeah.
Don't do it again.
Cool, thanks, Jesse. Board member reports. We'll go down the line. John.
Nothing to report.
Troy. Kevin.
Real quickly, I got 2 things. The first one is the bad. The second one is the good. The bad is I have no idea what happened with our coordinator, but whatever the events were that led up to our coordinator virtually instantaneously resigning, whoever's behavior that was, whatever happened, I'm very disappointed because what it did is it put a lot of other staff in a really bad place, as well as a lot of volunteers that had to make up for events that were scheduled and that. So whatever happened, don't know what it was, don't know what was said, don't know why it happened, but whatever it is, I'm very disappointed in the behavior that led up to it. On the up note is, I would like to thank the people that virtually in 24 hours pulled off the Pumpkin Festival, the people that volunteered, got that all together. I know Mayor Badeau, you should be commended for that because I know you were a big part of getting that off the ground. And I certainly appreciate your time and everybody else's time that made that happen and continues to cover for us having this gap in the services that we offer to the city of Brainerd without warning, okay? Also, the mayoral funds for the pumpkin are still intact. I bid that pumpkin up to $1,700 and wasn't even close. Went for $3,700. And at what point I just said, you know what? I don't feel comfortable spending Dave's money beyond 17, which was actually 200 further than we had agreed that I was going to go. So I was going to have bad news anyways on coming up with 200. But fortunately, the funds are still in place. We did not get the pumpkin. So, but I tried. I tried hard actually. So.
Can we rent it from the people who won it?
I don't know. I may not do it just out of spite, but
Right.
that's all. Thank you.
$3,700. Wow.
That is what I was told. I wasn't there for the final bidding because I stormed out of the, yeah, exactly. I threw my tag on the floor and said, I've had it, and left, but no. I actually was bidding online, but that's what happened.
Wow.
So dramatic.
Couple things for me. Thank you, Brittany, for pulling us through the summer. We appreciate having you here, but we will miss you. And thank you, Dave, for helping pull together the festival as well. I wish I could have been there, but I'm really happy it still happened. So it's awesome. And RIP to the wall clock, apparently. That's it for me. Kara.
I just want to say thanks to Dave for the pumpkin and Brittany for everything. Also, Sean from the city, Streets. He was there all day too at the pumpkin festival, so it was fun to work with him too. So did good.
Would you entertain me having a quick moment?
You always entertain.
Okay, so I did two things to note. First of all, thank you all for thanking me. It's very important that you thank me. But no, in reality, it's a small thing to do, right? I've said this 1,000 times, that events like that to me are important because if we can have one child that attends that event go on when they become an adult and want to do something similar in our city, we have had a successful event. So it was important that we did it. But Kara needs to be thanked. You're not getting away without getting thanked. Ran the messiest part of the day, which was the painting of the pumpkins. I wanted nothing to do with it because we got acrylic paint. I don't know if you know this as a parent. You don't buy acrylic paint. So whoever our new staffing is, don't buy acrylic paint. I lost a sweatshirt, one sweatshirt down with my 6-year-old. But I do want to thank Brittany and Tony as well, came out for the day. And then Sean from Streets, fantastic. It's such a big help. I'm going to make him help me with every event that I have. Secondly, I would like to note that I am going through the minutes here, and I may have misspoke. I do not see that we did gift our equipment previously, although I do see that we had a similar light situation at Gregory Park back in 2021. And what we chose to do was have a switch put into the warming house so that the warming house attendant can turn the lights on and off. So what we chose to do at Gregory with the same problem, why are we leaving the lights on, was to select that when we have someone in attendance there, which we should, that they are the ones turning the lights on and off. I do worry just a little bit that if we don't have the lights on, then people think that it's not available. And then we're paying someone to sit there while no one's coming to hang out. So just an interesting tidbit. We've had this problem before.
Be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn to
Yeah.
November 7th.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.